We were talking the other day in the AutoEV office about our memories of family cars. What do you remember about going on holiday and your family cars? What cars did your dad have?
Well, my dad had a Citroen GS.
Wow, cool
was,
dad.
Yeah,
that's
quite,
a nice
quite chic
car.
at the time.
Yeah.
I remember going to Benbridge with all the kit in the back.
Yeah.
Then we had an Alfa Sud, which was a bit more sporty. It was a hatchback.
So you just had like little hatchbacks then, this family
Pretty
car?
much, yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
We had, Dad was an architect, and we had some odd cars. We had a Renault 12 for a bit, and overriding memory of that is breaking down on the way to Suffolk. And and that was a terrible start to the holiday, but a lovely holiday. But that was part and parcel of getting there. So, and then went on to Cavaliers and stuck with Cavaliers for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I remember. I thought my dad was the coolest thing. I remember he traded his Mark III Cortina in for a Mark I Granada, like the Sweeney.
Right.
I thought he was like John
the Sweeney.
Thor. You know, I really did. My dad was like John Thor, the Sweeney of the professionals. But of course, the downside was when we wanted to go on holiday, we'd take my gran and her two sisters with us. So he had to swap that out for an old Escort estate that his colleague had at work. So of course, my sister and I sat in the boot. All the luggage went in the back, and the three old dears across the back bench. I mean, that was family cars these days.
Life was tough then, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. But what makes the best family car?
Yeah.
I think all you need is a 5-door hatch these days.
Well, no, a lot of people like to go for a crossover nowadays. So, you know, I'd say, Charlie.
Actually, I think you're both wrong. You see, I think if you're going to have a family, you know what kids are these? They've got iPads, they've got bikes, they've got everything they want to take with them. It's got to be a small MPV, that's it. Well, how are we going to decide this?
Well, I think
We'll just go and get some cars, will
we
we?
should do
right.
that.
Okay, so here we have the Citroen eC4, the car that we at AutoEV think is the best compact 5-door hatch.
And representing the small family crossover, we've got the Hyundai Kona.
And as you can imagine, I've done this properly and brought the Peugeot eRifter, the one that's going to hold up the integrity of the small compact MPV. So, without further ado,
Welcome to the Citroen eC4.
Welcome to the Hyundai Kona.
welcome to the Peugeot eRifter, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, styling is still going to be important because let's be honest, we'll want to be a cool dad.
Yes.
Let's start with the Citroen, which I think we're all in agreement of is probably the most kind of stylish looking of. We all
think
like the
so.
look of that, yeah?
Yeah, no, definitely. You know, that's definitely the one out of the three before the cars arrived that I was looking forward to seeing. And yeah, no, I like the style of it. Citroen, I've got a soft spot for Citroen, and the ride and comfort is always good with them. So I was looking forward to seeing that one and having a go in it.
Yeah, I think as Rod said, Citroen have always had that kind of chic kind of design edge, haven't they? And I think that does come through on this.
I mean, you had that kind of that period from sort of like the early 90s till just recently where they were that kind of, you know, the older C4 versions that were a bit bland and stuff.
Yeah.
They seem to have found their mojo again, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. So what, BX Starly?
Well, what they say is, but what they say is it's designed to evoke memories of the GS, the GSA.
Okay,
and if you have a
okay.
look at inside profile with that sloping roofline and that kind of three window
Definitely
six light design,
got that GS
it's
kind of
very much
heritage.
a GS kind of heritage
Yeah.
look about the car. I mean, obviously it's the hatch, but it still does sit a little bit higher, which is nice
Yeah.
for getting in and out. So there's an element of practicality about the way it looks. But I love the split headlight design. I love the kind of scallops on the bonnet there, and that just kind of integrated rear spoiler. I really like the way the Citroen looks. I think it's a
Yeah.
really stylish looking car.
But as you said, it is quite high up. I guess because with all the EVs, because of the battery platforms,
Yeah.
you've got to be raised. But that's the one thing I think. You know, it's a hatch, and you know, you've got the SUV, but there's not that much when you put them side by side. You know,
No.
the difference between a hatch
Yeah.
and an SUV.
It's not, it's a difference. Well, that brings us neatly on to the Kona.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the Kona. Now, I've got to say, right, there's a couple of things about it. I do like the Kona. I do like it. The one thing, I've always liked the Kona when it came out, but the one thing that I find about it is when they turn it into the Kona Electric, it loses a little bit of something. You know, the body colour, the cladding, and I like that kind of little kind of pseudo macho kind of little SUV style that the petrol ones have.
Yeah.
But then they kind of smooth it all off, and
This is a bit of an issue, isn't it? That
Yeah,
black area there,
I
it's
didn't-
kind of not good.
I mean the overall look of it is fine. I mean, I'm not a massive lover of that colour, although it is very much the AutoEV blue.
yeah, my family liked it.
Yeah,
As is as well.
yeah, but there's just something I think it just loses when they turn it into electric.
I agree with you, Brian. I think that the black trim and the actual grille is
Yeah.
such a key part of the styling and the look of it, and I really loved the Kona when it came out as in the petrol version. But
I think it's quite an approachable car, isn't it? It doesn't
Yeah.
challenge you. It's
No,
kind of,
no.
It's a day-to-day. You can kind of.
Yeah, and in fairness, you can see, I would suggest, young people driving it.
Yeah.
You could see older people driving it.
Yeah.
You could see people our age driving it. You know what I mean?
Of course.
It's not a youthful-looking car. It's not an old person's car per
It's not
se.
offensive. It's not.
No.
It's not dynamic. It's kind of just.
It's very middle of the road, very safe in that
I
sense.
think it will date quite quickly, though. I don't think it's for the long distance.
Yeah.
That colour will definitely date. It's a nice
Yeah.
colour now, but
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's a bit on trend. But, Which
No.
brings us down to this though.
The coolest car here.
Well,
Now, you guys have just, I tell you what, the car this reminds me of, it's French, it's a two-box design, it's got the kind of pseudo kind of SUV, bits of cladding around it. It's a Matra Rancho, it's a modern Matra Rancho, and that's a cool car. Tell me.
that was a cool car. And
That was a cool car in its time.
Yeah.
Let's be clear. It's still nice seeing them, but yeah.
it was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
But as you say, those kind of elements from that Rancho have come through into mainstream cars now.
Yeah.
The black trim and
Yeah,
the kind of edgy design. Yeah.
but no.
So, well, style. If we're talking purely styling, I like the Peugeot. I like the Peugeot way of dealing with the front. I like the light clusters. I like their grills. That's, you know, they're really refined on the way they do that.
Yeah.
Does it fit this height? I'm not sure. You know, perhaps they should have, you know, done something else. And the wheels, to be honest, although they're really nice wheels, I think pepper pots or that equivalent might suit the car better in some ways.
What, Steelies?
Yeah, or that, you know, some design cues from
Yeah.
there. Because it's like really posh wheels on a really functional car, because there's no way you can call this anything but functional. in my
Oh, absolutely, but as I say, I think that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, some people might say that the wheels are the only nice thing on it, but no, I do agree. I think Peugeot, with their front end and their current styling, that is a nice aspect of this car.
Yeah.
It is starting to
But the rear clusters are good as well.
Yeah.
I've got to say, they're not doing themselves any favours with this colour scheme, particularly in my mind.
What, the metallic brown?
Yeah, I mean, you know,
Poo
each to their
brown.
own- each to their own brown, but you know,
well, it looks better in this sun. It's almost got a bronzy kind of
Very copperish, kind of bronze flicked it. Yeah.
In normal light, it does look brown.
But you're thinking that driving around in a brown van.
I think, yeah, driving
With
around in
windows.
autumn time, you know, where it could blend in and almost camouflage in the leaves might be better.
I agree with you in some respects. I think Peugeot, I like the Berlingo, you know, when we had that back in December, which obviously this is effectively Peugeot's version of, and that's got a real kind of distinctive Citroen-esque front end to it, which is very divisive. You'll either find it ugly or you'll find it really cool. The Peugeot's a little bit more acceptable, and I agree with you. I think the way that they're dealing with the design, a bit like Citroen, they've kind of got their mojo back on the styling again, haven't they? Like they used to have. I mean, remember the 80s with the 205, the 405, and they were a cool looking car, you know, in the mainstream cars, and they've got that back, I think, and that's
Let's
it.
not forget the 309. You know, there's some other ones that they haven't, or 309,
Oh,
and they
yeah.
haven't done quite so well. So
Yeah.
they've got that in their armoury, as it were.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, in terms of styling, we all agree that the Citroen's the most stylish.
I think so.
The Kona's probably the most kind of run-of-the-mill, inoffensive, and just get on with. Ticks all the boxes. Yeah, doesn't excite, but doesn't thingy. And we just think the Peugeot, whilst it's Peugeot, you guys aren't seeing a cool car in this like I am.
It's such a tricky decision in this, but styling. If we're talking perfect, you know, just about styling, I'm not a big.
You're not a
fan
lover
of
of
the
this.
height versus the grille, and there's a few issues that I got about the back as well. But
Yeah.
I'm to be sold on it yet.
Yeah,
My family didn't want to be seen in this.
they're not on trend, Charlie. They're not. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Maybe they would warm up to it. I don't know, but
They're the teenagers. They maybe just want to be seen with their dad. Maybe that's what it was.
maybe that's it.
Right, let's move on.
Okay.
The Kona is the smallest of the three cars. It has 332 litres of space, expanding to 1,114 litres when the seats are folded.
Okay, so on the Citroen, you've got 380 litres of boot space, and with those seats folded down, you've got 1,250 litres. It's actually a pretty big boot compared to the Kona. And you've got this kind of rear deck here. There's a lot of space under here. You've got the cables are just kind of floating around. So if they utilise that more, the boot space would be even bigger. So yeah, a pretty decent sized boot on this.
But when it comes to the space race, there can be no doubt it is the Peugeot eRifter that takes the prize, with a gargantuan 775 litres of boot space, with the rear seats in place. Now, the only downside with it is the fact that the tailgate is huge. I mean, at least it gives you somewhere to stand under if it's raining. What you can do, however, is fold the rear seats down, and with all the rear bench folded, it goes up to a huge 3,000 litres of space that's available. And of course, it's quite a big square space that you can have. The downside, however, is there's no cable storage underneath the boot floor. That's it, they do float around in the back. However, the one good thing with this big tailgate is you can open the rear glass separately if you just want to chuck in a light load. But definitely, if you're talking practicality, the Peugeot takes the prize. Right, rear seat space in the Kona. How do you feel?
It's pretty good. I've got decent head height. Yeah, it feels really comfortable. We can both fit in here quite easy in the back.
Legroom?
Yeah. Yeah,
you're behind Rod.
Yeah, plenty of legroom there.
This is probably normal driving position.
That's your normal driving position, yeah? Yeah, I mean, I've moved this seat forward just so we can get, obviously, you into the shot. But yeah, I mean, again, I don't see any reason why. I mean, we're relatively similar heights. I don't see any reason why I wouldn't be able to sit behind something like that. Yeah. And you could do a reasonable distance. The seats are a nice kind of shape.
There they are.
They get nice cushioning, yeah?
Yeah, they feel nice.
Downside, no connectivity in the back.
No.
There's no USB ports in the back or charging facility. So again, if you've got kids, and of course they're addicted to Minecraft or whatever like mine are, you need to keep them charged up. There isn't a charging port in the back, so that's one downside. Yeah. We've got storage. Let's have a look. Yep, a couple of cup holders there.
Yeah, that's really useful, isn't it, the cup holders?
What's nice again, although the door bins aren't huge in the back of the Kona, they are shaped to take a bottle.
Okay, yeah,
they've actually shaped to take like a water bottle. So again, you've got reasonable storage. So in terms of overall space, this is pretty decent. It's just the lack of connectivity that's the bit the kind of black mark here. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Agree.
All right, let's try the Citroen. Rear seat space of the Citroen. What do we think?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of space here.
Still.
I kind of feel that the bottom is quite high and your legs are up a bit.
Yeah, you're kind of getting pushed up a little bit. I tell you the one thing I don't like about it is these head restraints. Unless they're up, they're digging into your back, the middle of your backs. Now when they're up, it's fine. But they've got to be up, otherwise they're just digging into the back shoulders. But what I do like about it is the rear bench is quite flat. You could see a third person.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Kind of sitting in here.
Also in the back, unlike the Kona, you get air vents, directional air vents, and some USB charging as well.
That's a good point, yeah. What's that, a USB A and a C?
It looks like.
Yeah, that's it. So you get both choices there. Some storage in the backs of the seats here.
Yeah.
Headroom's a bit tighter.
It is, yeah.
Obviously that styling, than you get in the Kona. It's a little bit tighter in the back here, but in terms of headroom,
it does look quite tight. It's kind of snug around your head there.
And then obviously if you were thinking, do you know what I mean? That bit's quite close to the side of my head there. But for kids, I wouldn't see.
They'd go 3 along the back here, but it would be a bit of a tight squeeze.
Yeah. But the flat bench, I think, is a big bonus.
Yeah.
But like the Kona, you do have a raised tunnel here because it's not a dedicated EV. That's one thing with dedicated EV. You don't get that kind of raise. So the middle person is going to have their feet on that if they're using it. But in terms of the seat again, it's quite comfortable.
Yeah.
It's like the fronts. It's well padded.
I was saying, not quite as comfortable. You've got massage facility on this.
Yeah. I think it's an extra. But when I first started fiddling around with the seat, I thought it'd just gone haywire. I was literally sort of going like that. It was just like, wonder what the hell was going on. But it's an option.
Were you hoping for a happy ending there?
It does feel like there's just a balloon blowing up in the back, doesn't it? And then it's a bit of an odd one, that is.
But the style of them, I think it's really chic. The style of
we'll talk about this when I'm driving the cars, but this is to do with what Citroen call their advanced comfort program.
Right.
So it's not just to do with how they design the chassis, but actually how the seats are designed as well, and where the density, the foam, different densities in different parts, where they've really looked into people how their comfort is.
You can feel
and you can feel it, can you? So I think it's a beautifully comfortable car. This.
I agree.
But in terms of rear seat space, I mean you've got legs, you've got loads of leg room there. We do feel your feet are pushed up a tiny little bit, but there's foot room.
They do, just feel a bit off the bench seat as well.
Yeah.
But Charlie, you'll be there yet? Shut up.
Let me show you the king of the space race. Let's go to the Peugeot.
Okay.
Now, tell me this is not the best family car of the three if you've got 3 kids. Come on.
It is huge, isn't it? It's absolutely cavernous. And yeah, these 3 separate seats across the back here, it's really nice, and it's nicely trimmed out as well.
I mean, this is GT trim, so I mean,
Okay,
there's a lower trim level than this as well. But you still get, I mean, obviously as well, this is the short wheelbase version. You can get a longer wheelbase with 7 seats.
Wow.
So you do have that option if you can't, read a book
Yeah.
in bed at night,
Yeah.
other things take your fancy, and you just keep breeding children, you can have a 7-seat version of it. But I mean, the seats split, they fold,
do
they
everything, don't
tip
they?
up, they can take them out. I mean, obviously you've got trays in the back of the seat as well.
Yeah, I mean, you've got everything you need. Cup holders in the tray. Yeah.
Now the
Vents.
only downside that you've got, I mean, you've got 12-volt charger, 12-volt socket in the back there, behind you, Charlie, so you can do through, but it's not USB connectivity. The only downside is because of the sliding doors, which are really practical in terms of
totally.
sort of getting
Parking,
kids in and out and getting parking spaces. But that means there's no door bins.
Yes.
You don't have any
I
door
hadn't
bins.
thought of that, yeah.
So you are limited. So you've just got these tiny little pockets there. That's the only thing. But the trays make up for it. But there is a huge amount of storage.
Yeah, and head height. I mean, there's just no issues there at all. It's just vast, isn't
You
it?
can have it with
And there's still loads of room here. Right back here. We've even got 2 bottle holders, and as Brian was saying, the chargers in the back here. So there's still space here.
You can have it with a console above, like an airline console for storage as well. So you'd get the glass panels on the roof
Nice.
and bits for putting storage in. So although you don't have the door bins, at least you'd have it there. But I think we've got to agree,
For a long journey, this is just a hands down win.
everyone's going to stretch out and be comfortable in here, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's a pleasure, isn't it? Yeah.
Another win for the Peugeot. I told you it was a cool car.
Brian.
Right, get out of the boot.
Okay, right. So we're in the Citroen, and I really love this car. Just the styling of this is really simple and it's chic. Compared to the other two, it just looks streets ahead and quite sort of futuristic, which is great. Really nice steering wheel, feels really nice in your hands. You've got the heads-up display, which the other two don't. And I really, personally, I love the heads-up display because the eyesight's going a little bit. And so you can just see the details. It's got the distance from other cars coming up on that graphic as well. This is really nice touch here with this screen. It's not like a typical where you see an iPad just kind of stuck on. It's really kind of integrated well, and I really like the way they've done that. It's brilliant. And the controls are really simplistic. You've got the phone charger pad, so you can just wireless charge in there, which is great. Really nice little sort of cubby hole there. You can actually get a lot of stuff down there. Then you've got this kind of slidey cover with the 2 cup holders, which is great. I have to say, flicking between these controls with the drive modes and the neutral, reverse and drive, they're a little bit fiddly to touch. These buttons for the drive and reverse, they're quite small. I know you've got the shifter there, which is pretty standard on most of these things. And also the drive modes, I found that a little bit difficult to control as well. The sat nav, that worked okay, but I did have a few issues. It did start just randomly going off across country, and I didn't know what it was doing, which is a bit bizarre. But I'm sure that could have been me fiddling around with it. On the steering wheel, you've got this kind of little joystick control here, which is great. And the only thing is you have to set which kind of mode you want to select to. So if it's radio, you select it here and then you can control it on here. Or if it's car settings, you have to flick it here and then control it on the joystick. And then you've got your cruise control here. It's fairly easy to use. Obviously with all these cars, it takes a bit of getting used to, but overall it's quite simplistic and it's generally easy to use. Some of the graphics on the screen, I really like the fact that it's a small screen, but you've got this really weird graphic of the kind of spinny fan, and when you're when it's adding recharge back in, it sort of flicks around. But that kind of spinny fan is always spinning around, which I found a little bit distracting. I'd say the digital instruments may be better on the other two, but overall, I think this is really chic and feels modern here. I like it.
So I've been living with the Hyundai Kona. it's a really comfortable car. It hasn't got the vinyl seats or anything like that, but it's comfortable to get in and out, and you know there's enough space in the front. There's enough space in the rear as well when I was taking the children around. Everything is well laid out. The air conditioning works really well. The climate control works really well. It's really clear with the centre console for the nav, showing you clearly the range left battery. That works really well. There's a lot of steering wheel controls, quite a lot in fact. So, you know, wipers and indicators on the stalks. There's a few other adjustments as well. The storage is good. There's a pad to recharge your phone. The one bit I didn't like so much was the controls for the drive. They seem a bit on the PSA groups. They're kind of as a lever, whereas here they're buttons, and these seem a bit clunky. So I wasn't quite so keen on that. There's 4 areas of control. You've got control for here. You've got the climate control here, and then you've got the drive mode right back here, and then parking brake here. There's 2 cup holders. What's another good point is under here we've got more storage and charging points there. There's quite a big bin here for larger objects. But yeah, generally it's a really nice driving position, quite adjustable to get the right feeling. And it's a nice car to be in.
Now, if you're looking for a cabin to be comfortable in, take a look at this. Now, the Kona and the eC4 we have reviewed on the channel before, and we'll pop links up, as I say, to those. So if you want a more detailed review of the interior of those cars, then you'll be able to go to their individual road tests and have a look at them. We haven't reviewed the Peugeot eRifter, but we have reviewed the Citroen Berlingo, which it shares a huge amount with. So again, a lot of the commonality will be shared in that. But there are some differences with the Peugeot. And I have to say, I do prefer the interior of the Peugeot over the Citroen. There's a reason for that. Now let me go through it. First of all, the driving position, whilst it's the same, you do sit very upright, you do sit very comfortable in these seats. If you've come from an SUV or a crossover, you've got that really high set driving position that gives you a good commanding view over the other cars on the road. But Peugeot they don't have a head-up display on the Rifter, but they don't need it because it uses this iCockpit. So you've got the traditional kind of Peugeot small steering wheel, which is here. And I have to say, it takes a bit getting used to, but I like it now. I'm really used to this kind of small steering wheel. And you look over the top of it straight into the instrumentation panel, so you don't need a separate head-up display. This has got all the information that you need, and it's really clear and it's really easy to see. You've got your speed there, and then obviously you've got your map area here if you're using the navigation, which is great. Your battery, your miles left to go, your range is down there as well, so everything's really easy to see and clear to use. You've got just the right amount of controls on the steering wheel. So you've got the source button, track select here as well, and a thumb wheel, and then volume over this side here. You can turn that off. The column stock's nice and easy to use and exactly where you find them, and everything has a feeling of quality about the controls. Well, when you press the button or flick the stock, there's a nice solid click to it, which is really good. There's some small minor controls down here, so say for turning your lane, keep assist off, the rear child locks and preconditioning of the battery. There's a switch down there for that. Moving across here, this is what I wasn't so keen on in the Berlingo. You had to pay extra for this console, whereas the Peugeot seems to have it, which I absolutely love. There is tons of storage in here, absolutely bags of it. You've got storage in there, you've got storage behind the screen there, you've got a glove box up the top there, you've got another open glove box down there, a shelf there, cup holders down here. You know, you can just fit everything in the car, and then you've got more than storage in the door bins. Plus you've also got all this storage up here as well for putting things in, so like books or iPads or maps. If you're old-fashioned like me, all that can get stored away. So it is a phenomenal interior. The downside with it is, I said before in the Citroen, the cup holders that you get on top of the dashboard, they're not as they don't take my big water bottle, so that's the only downside. But I mean, it's a first world problem, that. I mean, obviously you've got a smaller water bottle, or you just use, you know, a kind of McDonald's coffee cup, then that obviously will fit in there. It doesn't fit mine, unfortunately. What else to say other than that? Well, you've got the same kind of toggle switch transmission switch that you do in the C4. So you go between obviously reverse, neutral and drive. You've got the button for park, you've got the button for the brake regen, electronic park brakes here, your drive mode selections here. Your heating and ventilation controls are physical buttons and they're always on because they're also along here. And you've got this lovely big kind of high mounted display. Now again, there are more sophisticated screens than this, of course there are, but it all kind of works, which I quite like. You know, I mean, it's just nice and easy to use. It's a bit of a stretch away, depending obviously where your driving position is, but that's not really the end of the world. You also get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but you need to obviously plug it in via this USB point there, but that's the same as on the other cars as well. But it's just the feeling of space that you get here, which is just wonderful. And as I say, in terms of practicality, there's just nothing can beat this Peugeot. I really don't think there is. I think it's a great, great car. I really like it. Now, these are family cars, which means, of course, they're going to have to take children. And the test that we've dreamed up for this is how long it takes to fit an ISOFIX child seat to each car and how easy it is. Now, the disadvantage these two guys have is their kids are a lot older than mine, and they've never really done ISOFIX before, so this should be quite interesting. So we're going to time it, and bear in mind we've never done this before. So, Charlie, you first with the Citroen eC4. Rod,
I'll give you a countdown, Charlie.
He's
I'll
got
give you a 3, 2, 1, go.
And the seat's got to be clipped in with the seat belt through the top loop. Okay?
Right, yep.
Right.
3, 2, 1, go.
Right, let's go. Straight in.
Such a sight to see.
Oh, is she in? Right.
Right, 15
One
seconds,
side.
Charlie. Not putting any pressure on, but
Kids are starting to cry now,
Yeah.
Charlie.
There we go. Done.
22.04 is the
Oh.
result.
22.04. Rod, you're up next in the Kona. So, now, Rod's up with the Kona. Charlie, you ready with the stopwatch?
Yeah. I'm
Count them
ready.
down.
So, 3, 2, 1, go.
Kids are starting to get cranky now, I'd say. Oh no, one of them's running into the road, Rod! One of them's running into the road! You have
That's
to
one
get-
less, Charlie.
10 seconds.
Oh, I hate to say this. Charlie, I've got you.
Oh my god.
What's the time?
15 seconds.
Way!
Oh my god.
Time for the
Expert.
Peugeot. So, now it's my turn with the Peugeot. Right, count me
Right.
down.
You ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1, go.
Charlie, what's this bit here? Oh, crap, there going on.
Should we move the seat?
Get away
Just
from me,
move
you
in
two.
here, Brian.
Get out of it!
He's done this before.
Yes.
Done.
Oh, 17.
No! It's the zips! It's the zips! That's what the problem is. You've got to undo the zips first.
Yeah, the Kona straight in.
You say that to your wife? Now, the Peugeot and the Citroen use the same battery pack and motor. So the battery you get in these two cars is a 50 kilowatt hour battery. The Citroen will do, according to WLTP figures, a range of about 217 miles. But obviously it's a little bit less with the Peugeot because of the size and bulk of the car at just over 170 miles. Now, the Kona comes with two battery sizes. It's the smaller of the one that we've got here, which is the 39 kilowatt hour one. But even so, it gives a WLTP range of 198 miles. So all three cars are very, very similar in terms of the range. In terms of charging speeds, they're exactly the same. All will take speeds of up to 100 kilowatts. Now, to go from 10 to 80% on a 100 kilowatt charger on the Citroen and Peugeot, it's around about 30 minutes. It is, believe it or not, a little bit longer at 44 minutes on the Hyundai. Now again, charging overnight from your 7 kilowatt wall box, well, they're all roughly round about the same at just over 11 hours.
Yeah, so although this has got the kind of highest range, I wasn't getting that at all.
It's been the
Yeah.
least efficient, hasn't it? Since
Yeah.
we've all been driving all three cars. I think all three of us have found the Citroen, believe it or not, to be the least efficient of the
Yeah.
three.
The plus side of the Kona is that, you know, it's a really accurate gauge of the mileage range that they give, and that kind of builds confidence in when you're driving around on a day-to-day basis. You go in there, you see how many miles are left, and you
know
believe
it's going to do that.
The Citroen kind of, it's a bit wavy. If you're
Yeah.
on motorway, especially, it kind of drops quicker, we found, didn't we? So,
You've got to drive that in eco mode to get every kind of
Get
ounce.
every last, yeah.
As soon as you put it in sport or a normal mode, those miles just drop away, but you don't get
No.
in these two.
Well, funnily enough, I had the Citroen last night, and I was driving down on the motorway this morning, and I must admit, even though it had quite a high charge in it, on motorway it really dropped up. You know, and that was only doing 70 miles an hour.
I also
honest
found
stuff.
on the Citroen in the eco mode as well, it feels a bit underpowered almost, and it coming up to a fast roundabout, down here, it's kind of you're wondering whether the space is big enough when you put your foot down. So it takes a little more to pick up on that.
I think it's interesting. You mentioned this as well earlier, Charlie, that we've all agreed that the Hyundai and the Kia equivalents, they always give you that confidence. They're always been the most efficient, but they're also very like Tesla that way. When you've got that mileage, as Rod says, that you see on the screen, you're confident that's what you're going to get,
no, totally.
and we'll do that.
Yeah.
So in terms of efficiency and usability, we reckon the Hyundai is probably the choice when it comes to that. The Citroen's probably the one that's disappointed the most, and the Peugeot is somewhere in maybe between the two.
So the higher figure doesn't really make much difference on this, does it?
And none of us have been driving them hard.
No.
It's just general everyday running ability.
Totally. I think we've given them a practical test. We've done different things, different activities and
different modes.
We've all found the same conclusion. That wasn't kind of very accurate.
So Hyundai, Peugeot, Citroen when it comes to usability. So, the Citroen eC4. What do we think out on the open road? Well, it's 136 PS like the Peugeot. Uses the same battery and the same motor as the Peugeot does, as do all the sort of cars from the artist formerly known as PSA. It does a 0 to 60 time of just under 10 seconds, about 9.5 seconds, which plenty fast enough, I suppose. It's a 5-door family hatchback after all. What more do you want? But it's the way the Citroen drives that sort of stands it apart from many other cars, and it's that wonderful blend of comfort and refinement that Citroen have absolutely nailed with this car. Now let me get very, very geeky on you for a second. Bear with me, this is where I become a proper car bore. So Citroens of yore used to use a hydropneumatic suspension setup. Well, the C4 doesn't operate like that now. It uses a thing called hydraulic cushions in its suspension. Now this is part of what Citroen class as its advanced comfort program. Cheesy, yeah, but it works. Now, what this has to do with is tuning a car for comfort for driver and passengers. Now it's not just down to the actual chassis, it's down to things like the amount of cushioning in the seats, where the foam density, where it's positioned to make sure that you're actually supported really well and your body feels nice and comfortable and you don't get achy and tired after a long drive. And I have to say, having done a long drive in this car this morning, I can turn around and say it is biblically comfortable in this seat. But let's get back to the chassis work, because that's the part where it gets really, really geeky. These hydraulic cushions. Now, what this means is, normally on any normal car where you have a suspension setup where you have a spring and a damper, the spring and damper will reach the two extremities of either full compression or full decompression. So in other words, when they are absolutely pushed together in a full compression situation, so in other words, if you hit a speed bump and the wheel goes right up into the wheel arch, or when you hit a pothole and the wheel drops to give you the full decompression. Normally in any other car, what that means is it would hit what's called a bump stop, and when it hits the bump stop, it stops. The energy that is then created by that is dissipated through the structure of the car. So when you're driving your car and you hit a speed bump at speed and you just get this massive jolt through it, that's what you're feeling. What Citroen have done is, however, fit these bump stops with hydraulic cushions where there's still movement to go. In other words, the energy is then dissipated through these bump stops, these hydraulic cushions, and away from the structure of the car. It's absolutely simple thing, but like all great ideas, well, as I say, like all simple things, they turn out to be a really great idea. And it's the same, as I say, on a full decompression. So again, if you hit a pothole and the wheel drops right to the end of its travel, as I say, it doesn't just come to this jarring jolt. You've still got an element of travel there thanks to these hydraulic cushions. Brilliant, works so well, and I defy anyone to drive this and tell me that it's not a beautifully smooth and comfortable car, because it is. Away from that, how else does it drive? Well, it's okay. It's not a sporty car. You know, you pitch it into bend, there is an element of body roll in it. Not to the point where you'd make your passengers feel sick, but you do feel it just move around a little bit more. But I'm okay with that, because they say that trade-off with the comfort. The only two faults that I can really lay at the Citroen's door, one of them is not just to the Citroen, in fairness, it's to all the cars from Stellantis Group, and it's the brakes. They're just really difficult to modulate smoothly. There's a deadness to the pedal. I've said this time and time again. When you push the pedal, it feels like nothing happens, nothing happens, nothing happens, and then there's a bit of travel and then all of a sudden it grabs, and it's really difficult to drive smoothly. Now you can sort of move away from that by using the B button down here. It has one level of brake regeneration, the car, so it's not quite one pedal driving, but certainly at town speeds, if you use that, or at lower speeds on the country roads, if you use that, then you're not relying too much on the brake pedal, thankfully, because that really is, I've never liked it, and I just don't think they're actually much cop. The second thing that I'm not so keen on is the steering, and I know the boys have said exactly the same thing when they've been driving a car. It's overly light. It's just ridiculously light. It feels like, you know, you pitch it into a bend and you turn it almost too quickly. It's so light. I'd like a little bit more weight in the steering. I'm not asking it to be sporty, that's not what I mean. I just want a bit more weight in the steering. I mean, obviously around town, it's really light and easy to manoeuvre. But yeah, it's just overly light as far as I'm concerned. It needs to be a little bit more, there needs to be a bit more weight behind it, I think. Other than that, I think this is a great car, and if you haven't driven it and you've got your heart set on an ID3, my advice to you is, once you've driven the ID3, go and drive the eC4, because I'll tell you now, I think you'd be surprised how good this car really, really is. Now, when you opt for the smaller battery in the Kona, you also opt by default for a smaller motor, but it's just over 136 brake horsepower, so it's on par with the other two cars that we have, and it does a 0 to 60 time of around about 9 and a bit seconds, which again, it's perfectly acceptable for this type of car. Although what I will say is, it feels a little bit more sprightly than the Citroen, and a lot more sprightly than the Peugeot, of course. And the Kona's always been a great little car to drive. I really like the way that the Kona does actually drive. The only criticism that I've had of the Kona in the past is its refinement. There's a little bit more road noise that you get than, say, from the equivalent Kia. That's always been the case. And don't get me wrong, it's not uncomfortable. It's not uncomfortable at all. It's just that you notice it more. And of course, we've been sort of like praising the Citroen for being so comfortable and quiet, that you do notice it when you jump into the Kona. But on saying that, I would say of the three cars, it is the one for the driver. It has a slightly better turn-in. The steering is slightly better weighted, well, a lot better weighted than the Citroen, that's for sure. And it's to say, when you sort of like pitch it into a bend like that, there's just a nice weight to the steering. It kind of just weights up enough. It's not pin sharp. It's not a BMW M car, obviously, but what it is just a little bit more confidence inspiring, where you can get a hustle on. Whereas the Citroen, the faster you drive it, the more sort of out of shape it gets. Apologies for the beeping noise, that's it. When I go near a white line, that's the only thing. The safety systems are a little bit overzealous in the likes of the Hyundai. What else to say about it? Well, the other things I can praise about it are the brakes. They're a lot better than the other two. They're certainly a lot sharper. They're just a lot nicer to use, and they're easier to modulate. You've also got better, more adjustment of the regeneration as well, and that's done via the two paddles behind the steering wheel. So you can make it very aggressive on the brake regeneration by using the left-hand paddle. to the point where it's almost one pedal driving, or on the right paddle you can take it off completely so that when you lift off the car just coasts, and that is what's going to help the efficiency as well, because when you're up on the motorway, then obviously you're not, the engine's not fighting against any brake regen, it will coast. So that in part makes the Kona better when it comes to efficiency and when it comes to the actual drivability of the car. Suspension's good. It's firmer than the Citroen, and it feels a bit more sophisticated than the Peugeot. So it's certainly between those two stools. It's not uncomfortable, so you certainly wouldn't have your children feeling a bit sick in the back, or you're not bouncing down the road. But as I say, it just lacks that final cushioning that the Citroen is so renowned for, and one of the things that we absolutely love about that car. Otherwise, what else is there to say about the Kona we haven't already said? Well, it's a good driving position. You get a nice, firm seat to sit in. It holds you well. I prefer, when you're talking about sort of like trim levels, I actually prefer this sort of mid-trim, because you don't get that horrible scratchy material that Hyundai try and pass off as leather. I actually prefer the cloth seats. So I think this mid-level trim is probably the one to have, because the cloth's nice. It feels, like it kind of holds you better. You don't tend to slide about like you do in the cars with that horrible vinyl that they tend to put in it. On saying that, there's still some sort of like harder plastics around the interior and stuff. It doesn't feel as premium in some areas as the Citroen, and it certainly doesn't feel as premium as its equivalent from Kia, which is odd. Driver assistance, well, as I said, there's obviously a plethora of those. You get lane keep assist, you've got obviously radar guided cruise control, which is all nice and easy to modulate. There are 3 driving modes, as you'd expect, and they're operated from down here. They're quite far back in the centre console. So you have normal, sport. When you press it into sport, everything glows red and the graphics change on the dials, and that's the bit where, as I say, it feels a lot more sprightly than the Citroen. It really does feel like there's a little bit more than 130 odd nags clambering through the front wheels, so that's fairly decent. You come back from sport, you've got eco, and actually then you've got a 4th mode, because if you press and hold it, you go into eco plus. Now that shuts everything down, so the aircon's going off now, the throttle pedal's got a sort of deadness to it now, so it's that time where you're trying to just get every last little metre and mile out of the car. That's where you would use that one, but to be honest with you, I'd go into normal mode. That's where the car feels at its most natural, and dare I say, at its best. This is a good car. I like this a lot. As I say, it's certainly the driver's choice of the 3, and it's still a decent family car in terms of what it's able to do. But if you have an interest in driving more than comfort, then the Kona is a better steer than the Citroen, and obviously better than the Peugeot when it comes to the twisty stuff, because that's, well, just a big box on wheels really, isn't it? Still, I like it. So, the Peugeot eRifter. It's by choice. It's an MPV, and we've driven the Citroen eBerlingo, and it's very, very similar. So that means it uses the same battery and electric motor that we're seeing in the Citroen eC4, which is to say a motor that produces 136 brake horsepower. Now, it's a big old car, this, so let's not think that it's going to be in any way performance winner in the performance category, because it isn't. 0 to 60 takes well in excess of 10 seconds, because obviously it's big, it's heavy, and it's shaped like a big cardboard box. But that's good for carrying things, not so good for moving through the air swiftly. But that's not what these cars are about. As I keep saying, they're family cars. What makes the best family car? Well, it still has to be good to drive though. So even though it is a family car, and even though obviously there are going to be times where you're going to be carrying your kids and loads of stuff in it and all the rest of it, there is also going to be a time where you're not, and you're going to be in it on your own. And are you going to enjoy driving it on your own? Well, yeah, I mean, it's okay. you know, it's reasonably adept at what it does. It's very comfortable to drive. That's the one thing I will say. It's a very, very comfortable car to drive. You know, you got a good, nice kind of driving position. If you're coming from something like an SUV or a larger crossover style car, the driving position you get in the Rifter is very, very similar. In other words, it's quite elevated. You sit high up, you get a good view around you, and you get a good view of the extremities of the car, which is really, really handy. The small steering wheel that Peugeot fit actually isn't, once you get used to it, it isn't so much of a downside that the quicker rack of the C4 is. I'd say that's the worst of the two. This smaller steering wheel is actually okay. You know, there is a weight behind the Rifter steering rack, which is absolutely fine, and you know, it doesn't feel as artificially light as the one in the eC4 does. So that's not really a consideration. As I say, depending obviously on where you sit in your driving position in the car will depend on how well you view the driving position. I think it's very good. The wheel doesn't interrupt my view of the dashboard at all. So I get a nice clear view into that instrument binnacle. And it's the same with the whole dashboard. You get this lovely kind of sit back view of everything, and everything falls easily to hand. So this sloping console with plenty storage in here, that's all great. In terms of performance though, well, yeah, as I say, you know, it's all right. It does the job. It gets you from A to B. It keeps up with traffic. As I say, you're certainly not going to be finding the car the set of keys that were the ones that you'll be reaching for if you want to just head off down a little twisty back road in mid-Sussex. But as I say, it's all right. It does the job. There is a downside, and that is the brakes. You know, it's exactly the same as we mentioned in all these PSA group cars. The brakes are just, they're really bad. You know, as I say, they're really difficult to modulate smoothly. And it's a shame that they don't have more of a brake regen like the Kona does, more adjustability to the regen, because if they had that, then obviously you wouldn't be relying on the brake pedal as much as you need to be. Other than that though, I can't really fault the drive of this car. You know, as I say, it's comfortable, you get a good view out, the seats are okay, you know, there's a nice driving position to be had. The performance is okay. It's pretty much as you'd expect from a compact kind of family MPV. You've got the different driving modes like you do on all the other cars, and they're activated by this switch here. So when you're in eco mode is one I think is best left avoided if you can, because, you know, Rod was saying earlier, he found it certainly in both the Citroen and this, almost to the point where he found it quite dangerous when he was moving away sort of from a roundabout. He genuinely expected to have more response when he was in eco mode than you do. It really dulls the throttle pedal down, so I'd best avoid that. I've been driving this car around in normal mode, and that's absolutely fine. You put it into the power mode and yeah, there is a bit more sharpness to the throttle pedal, but I don't think it's necessary. I don't think you need it. That's the thing. You know, I think it's okay, it does the job, but no, do you need it? I don't think so. You tip it into a corner and you do feel the bulk of the car, there's no doubt about it. It stays relatively flat, that's the one thing I will say. The body doesn't tend to roll so much, because obviously bear in mind the batteries are all located down in the car, down at the bottom. So there isn't too much body roll as such, but you know, you can't get away from the fact that it is a tall car. So there is a little bit more inertia when you go into a corner, but as I say, it's not really what the car's about, and I don't think you're going to be using it like that, so I don't think it's necessary to discuss it much further than that, to be honest with you. On the whole, if you were doing a long journey, this would be a very nice car to do it in, because as I say, you've got a very comfortable driving position, the seat's nice, you get a nice kind of armrest here. As I say, once you get used to the size of this steering wheel, you understand the advantage of it, where you've got a nice view across the dashboard, and it's fine. So I think on a long journey, this is actually a really pleasant car. Ride quality is good, not as good as the Citroen, not as bump thumpy as the Kona, but it's very, very good. Obviously, if you went for the longer 7-seat car, you probably find there's more volume inside, so therefore you maybe get a little bit more kind of road noise transmitted through the actual cabin. But on this one, 5-seat one, I'd say refinement is not as good as the Citroen, but again better than the Kona. There's not as much road noise comes up through from the bottom of the car as there is in that one. So I think it's somewhere between the two. But on the whole, as a summary, this is a surprisingly good car to drive. And as I say, if you are on a longer drive, certainly, this is a really comfortable car to do it in. I'd be quite happy to take something like this to Cornwall, you know, or up to Scotland or something, because you just get everything in it, and actually, as I say, it's quite a relaxing car to drive. I like it.
Okay, so pricing on the eC4, this starts at just under 30,000 at 29,995. But this model, the Shine Plus, it's actually got a few extras on there, like the sunroof, metallic paint, the massaging seats, and the park assist. That pushes it up to nearly 37,000.
Wow,
That's quite a lot. So the Kona we've got, this is the premium version. This is 34,500, or just under 34,500. The base model, the SE, starts at 33,000, or around 33,000. Yeah.
Well, the Peugeot kind of sort of splits the two. So I mean, you can get into a Rifter from around about £32,000, because bear in mind they no longer do the internal combustion engine ones of these. It's just pure electric. Right. You can buy these cars in now, so they're just EVs. So £32,000 sees you into a Rifter, but this one, as tested, again like Charlie's, has got a couple of options fitted to it. This one's coming in at 36,000, but bear in mind, although that's, as I say, between the two that we've got here, you can go more expensive, because this is the 5-seat version. If you opt for the 7-seat version, that's more money as well.
Yeah.
So, 3 very different cars, probably 3 very different verdicts from when we first had the cars, when they first arrived with us. Would you agree with that?
No, definitely.
I think our minds have changed all the way.
Perceptions have changed, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
What do you where are you on this then, Rod? What do you think?
Before I drove all 3 cars, the Citroen was, in my mind, was the one that I was going to like. You know, I like the brand, and it looked the most stylish. However, since driving, the most efficient and the one that I feel most comfortable is actually the Kona. It just ticks a lot of boxes. But the bit that's really thrown me as well is the Peugeot. Just the amount of space that you can get in the back.
It's vast, isn't it?
You can put bikes in, straight in without, taking wheels off or anything.
And
like
that's the short wheelbase one. Remember, there's a 7-seat
So
option of
even
that as
bigger,
well.
yeah.
So you can go even bigger with that.
So it is a bit of a spanner in the works in my decision.
But we've got to think about this in the terms of family cars. Now, although we're all family men, we've always got to think about what's going to suit different people, and where these cars are going to be aimed at. So it's not necessarily, as I say, what we thought might have been our perception as what we would have wanted to drive, but thinking from a family point of view. So how would you do a 3-2-1 or a 1-2-3? How would you position them in your mind?
After the tests and after going through, in my mind it would be Kona, Peugeot, and then Citroen.
Wow.
Which is completely almost the opposite of what I thought
you thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah.
Charlie, where are you on this?
It is a really difficult one, isn't it? They are all very different cars. And like Rod, when I first saw the Citroen, I thought it was a great looking car, and I really wanted to like that the most. But then once you've driven that Peugeot, there's so much space in there. As you say, it is about being a family car. And to get so much stuff in there is just such
don't even think
I
about
guess
it.
also for disabled people, if you have to do a wheelchair conversion with a lift at the back.
That's a good point. Or, that's the one thing I'll say where the crossovers really do win as well, because if you're of limited mobility, whether you're stepping out of a wheelchair or, dare I say, you're just a little bit older and you don't want to drop down into a car, something that's got the height of the crossover or the Peugeot, you're not climbing up into a big SUV, you're not dropping down into a hatch. No. It's just that nice step across. So that's got to be a consideration as well for some people as well. So Charlie, where are you on the final
1, 2, 3?
What's your 1, 2, 3? What's first?
Do you know what? With the Kona, I can't really explain why, but when the whole family was in there driving around, it just felt right. It does have good driving dynamics, which I like. I mean, the boot is quite small, but you still get away with it with the family. It's still enough. So, if I was going to put my money down, I would probably take the Kona.
Take the Kona.
And then for second place, it's really difficult between those two. But I think because it's a family car test, I think I'd have to put the Peugeot second, because it's all that space. Yeah, as you say, if you're into sports or you run a business and you can't
Yeah,
afford,
that's a good point as well. You know, if it's a small business, you don't have to have a van and a car.
No, you
can just have that. Yeah,
because you could easily kind of cart like boxes or equipment around in that really easily.
Yeah,
and it's nicely styled inside. It feels comfortable and nice.
Yeah.
I think, you know, the colour of that one doesn't do it any favours at all.
Fair enough. Yeah.
It's kind of not the right one for that, I don't think, personally.
If it was like a nice sort of flat grey,
it could
or
work
a
better.
dark navy or some other colour, I don't know.
I mean, it is getting there though. I mean, the front of that car is styled really nicely.
Yeah, definitely.
I do like that.
And you think a couple of spots on it, Macho Rancho. I told you, it's a Macho Rancho. Think about that.
Rancho, yeah, I'm a big fan of the old Rancho. That was very ahead of its time, and maybe it's starting to go towards that with the black trim and stuff. It's it does work.
And then so that leaves the Citroen in last place, but a commendable last place, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. The Citroen always does kind of style very well.
And comfort as well, isn't it? You know, it's a really nice,
really
if you're doing a long drive.
That is one of the most comfortable. There's a ridge on the road up by me, and every single car I drive over this ridge, it jars through it. The only two that haven't done it is the Mercedes EQS with its fancy and aromatic suspension, and that Citroen. You just don't feel it. It glides over it. It's so comfortable.
You say long ride, but you know the range on that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
217 miles. You're just not getting that.
You're not getting that.
And these are around the sort of 170, 180 miles mark, and I feel more confident
that they would do it.
And to the range, no, absolutely.
Would do it.
You can't trust the Citroen almost, which is horrible to say, but if it says that much,
talks too much. Yeah. Right, interesting. Well, I hate to say this, but I'm in agreement with you. I really am. I think there's so much. I mean, the Kona, it's the one, as I say, that's the most fun to drive. So from a driver's point of view, it is the one that's fun to drive. I would think, yes, 9 out of 10 times what you need a car to do, that's going to do everything you need to do. If you need the extra carrying capacity, yes, you could argue you could put a roof box on it or bike racks on the back.
That's true.
And it's everyday car where the majority of people are maybe just driving it themselves and you're not having the whole family in it.
Yeah.
But you'd probably get away with everything that you need in that.
Yeah,
I would think.
No, I agree.
Again, it's exactly the same as you guys. It's difficult to ignore how good that Peugeot is in terms of space. I mean, we all like to holiday with our families.
It would make our life easier, wouldn't it? For loading up and stuff. That's impossible to ignore.
Run down to Cornwall, trip up to Scotland.
Go to the dump.
Goes in. Go to the dump.
Everyday stuff. It's
everyday stuff. You just can't imagine a scenario that you're not going to have enough space in that Peugeot, can you? That's it. No. And again, like the other two, Citroen. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Citroen. I love the C4. I think it's a great looking car. It reminds me of the old Citroen GS.
Yeah.
It's comfortable. It's nice to drive. I love the interior. I'm with you, Charlie. I think the interior's nice laid out. I love the way they've styled it. I love the comfort. But it is a car that you drive at sort of like 7/10. As soon as you start to up the pace a little bit, it starts to fall apart a wee bit, where the Kona doesn't.
No.
The Kona's the more dynamic one. So from those times where you are in the car and you still want to enjoy driving, I think it's the Kona. So yes, I am in agreement. So it's Kona, Peugeot, Citroen.
Well, there you go.
That's it. So, ladies and gentlemen, a first on AutoEV, we all agree. Thank you ever so much for watching another episode of AutoEV. I really hope you've enjoyed it. Please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, and once you do that, if you make sure you click the little bell button down below, that way you'll be notified of when our next video goes live. If you do like the videos, make sure you give them a thumbs up and leave us some comments, good or bad.
And yeah, you can also follow us on social media on either Instagram or Twitter. Our Instagram feed will let you know when the next video drops. So give us a follow on that as well.
Yeah, and of course YouTube. There's that big back catalogue of videos. We've got classics. We've got the latest.
Actually,
stuff.
Charlie, 100th video. This is
it. This is our 100th video. So, folks, if you've been a supporter of the channel and you've watched all those 100 videos, thank you ever so much.
And if you haven't, there's a lot to go and have a look at.
There's an afternoon to kill, isn't it? On behalf of Rod, Charlie and myself, thank you ever so much for watching another episode. Thank you for supporting us as a channel. We hope to see you again soon. Thank you. So, you've watched our video. It's now my job to tell you to like and subscribe and press the little bell button to receive notification of when our next video is uploaded.